We are now officially live. I'm sitting here with my friend Barry Smith, who actually just gave me a little drum concert. And
Glad
so
that's over.
that was fine. That was wonderful. Now, let's just go back to the beginning. Talk about you and me and Crane when we were working on stuff because I just signed a deal to restart Sufit Records, and I want to hear about you actually on the. You had a part in that story, didn't you?
I did, and it's funny that that all happened. Me and my wife have been talking. I have been in Greg Roller's studio over here in Branson, Missouri,
Right.
and I have actually been finishing up the album that I started that I was going to record with Lou Whitney all those
Okay.
years ago, and never got the chance to.
Right.
And it was right around the time, just a little bit before Eric Edmondson went in with the Straight Winds and did
Yes,
his
exactly.
album over there.
Exactly.
And I never did. I was during that time in my life, I think I was too drunk to get an album finished. So
Well,
that's
and
just the truth.
that is,
Yeah.
and what I remember that is you actually kind of lived above the studio for a while, right? Or above the Slewfoot Records
Well,
headquarters.
I squatted above Slewfoot Records
Okay.
in the apartments that were above the laundromat over there, right next door.
Right.
And I remember I worked over at the cafe across the street for a little bit. They had mercy on me and let me work over there, and it was really sad for all the customers. And let me tell you what, Beulah would feed me every day.
Really? Wow.
Yep. She took care of me. She said, "I don't know who this crazy boy is from across the street, but I know he's got to eat." So
Right.
she let me serve during breakfast time over there. And then after lunch, she would send me home usually with a little cup of chili or something and feed me every day.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And
And that during that time, I think I was probably, and of course we knew each other before then. You
Right.
served as a substitute teacher and
I sure did.
assistant teacher, while I was in grade school and high
Right.
school. And
Uh-huh.
so we knew each other from there.
Yes.
And
you would
you
actually come down and play songs for me.
Yes, yeah. I started playing guitar at 11, and then I quit just abruptly after I lost my guitar, and it broke my heart, and I just kind of quit playing. It actually disappeared at a drama party at our house. Some drama students were over, and it disappeared, and so I kind of got brokenhearted over that, and I quit. But then at 15, I got another guitar. I got an electric guitar, and I got the chord poster from Walmart that had
Right, sure.
on it, and I started learning from that. And I got really into a lot of drop D stuff at the time,
Right.
a lot of heavy metal, Pantera, Slayer, things like that. And then growing up in Crane, there weren't very many musicians, especially not rock musicians.
Right.
And so I never really could get people together to start a band. So
Have a band, yes.
I started moving more the acoustic direction to where I could play and sing,
I
because
remember
it was a little more complete than just being a guy showing up with an electric guitar and just playing,
Right.
So, and then around that time that you had started Slewfoot Records, I'd really gotten into songwriting. I'd started writing it. And I'll tell you, most of that music was just my pain,
Right.
and a way to deal with my pain and express my emotion with a lot of the things that I've been through, and of course I had a pretty serious drinking problem by then. I think I was 18 years old, 17 or 18 then.
Right.
And but the music was very raw. It was honest, it was different. And whenever I went through some things more recently, in my testimony, what happened when we had to close the church down, some of that old pain started to surface again. And I was like, you know what? I never did get that album. I never got this out of me,
Right.
And so I started back in 2018,
Okay.
working on that album. And then I hadn't done anything with it since the beginning of 2020 had been sitting. And I'm sure Greg's like ready to blow the dust off of it, get it finished and out of his
Right.
studio.
Sure.
Well, I'll be going in on the 6th to lay down all the electric guitar parts
That's fantastic,
over the
man.
acoustic
So cool.
and vocals. Yeah, so I had a great session drummer came in and did some of the songs, and my buddy Brian Duvall is going to come in and do a couple more on the drums. And but yeah, we're going to lay down the leads. After that, it's just some backup vocals and then some touch-up vocals. And that secular album will be it'll be finished. And really, I just finished it just to get it out of my heart, just to get it on the vinyl or on the CD, and for some of my friends and family to have it. I have no ambition to do anything with it other than that. But I want it to be one of those things that I don't regret all my life never doing.
Right, exactly. And that's part of the same thing with me restarting Slewfoot, is just kind of like closing circles, if we say that.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it's funny. I'm kind of in a way, God's got me. That's a good way to put it. Closing circles. That might be the name of the album. You watch out.
Well, I'll give you got credit. You can use it anything you want. That's wonderful.
Well, when I was in Crane Tuesday night, I was sharing my testimony at Breaking the Chains. And, part of the reason that I'm back ministering in Crane is, as God kind of took me back to that, God was like showing me, hey, I gave you a place and people to serve with and minister with. And Barry, you fled. You took your ball and you ran, to Reed Spring and did ministry there. And then it didn't turn out the way I thought it would there. So I planted a church in Branson, and listen, God got glory in all of it, and people got saved, and names got added to the Lamb's Book of Life. So it's not all loss, but for me right now, in my own selfishness, looking at my own situation, I would say, God's saying, hey, go back and finish what we started.
Exactly.
And close that circle.
Exactly.
And listen, it's not a to-do to check off the list. These are people in the city that were my friends, that are my ministry partners, that I wasn't there for the way I needed to be, and I need to be there for them the way that I'm supposed to be, and let them be there for me the way that God put them in my life to be. And and it's been hard, man. My bass player passed away on Good Friday of this last year, and he was a really close brother and a mentor, and just gone way before his time. 52 years old, Thumper Richard Kent, left this planet. I mean, he got to go be with his best friend.
He was so loved. But so that's kind of my thing, just kind of like talk about you and talk about your testimony.
Well, I mean, of course we've got the previous testimony, but it was, it was from before, and people can go back, they still have the opportunity.
Absolutely, yes.
The Dale Wiley Show.
DaleWileyShow.com, all it's there. All the episodes are all there.
Okay, and they can kind of get the backdrop with a little more detail, but for the long and short of my testimony, I grew up with pain like a lot of us do from various things, whether it's friends passing away or parents with a troubled marriage or, no parents at all. Everybody's got their story, Everybody has to go through stuff. And I went through stuff, and as a teenager, I kind of rebelled, obviously, and I was brokenhearted, and I ran from God, and I ran towards drugs and alcohol full speed. I got into dealing drugs. I mean, to stay high, I had to, sell and whatnot. And to stay drunk, I had to stay playing guitar at parties and,
Right.
doing whatever just to keep doing what I was doing. And then, 19 years old, my son Jacob was born. And I, I always say this in my testimony. I wish at that point I would have said, okay, now I'm a father. It's time to get
Right.
things right. But I didn't, and I mean, that's one of those regrets in my life. But, my son and I have a good relationship. Matter of
Right.
fact, the last time that, not the last time we saw each other, but the time before, we were on our way to the house, and we don't have real heavy conversations without laughing a little. We're very
Exactly.
simple, and so I was like, I wish I would have been there more for you, and I know I wasn't. And we were talking about things, and he looks at me with a smirk and he says, "Dad, I'm glad we can bond over your absence." And we both laughed.
Well, that's how you do it. That's how it goes. Definitely.
And looking back, his mom did such a great job raising him. I probably would have been more of a detriment if I was there every day. Who knows, but, that was one of my big regrets, one of my deep hurts. And one of the things that I think even worse catapulted me into addiction was feeling like a failure as a father.
Right.
And then a couple years, down the road, working in nursing, God started working on my heart, ministering to the residents, then ministering to me. And I think I joked about this with my testimony the other night. My very first sermon, I think, was in the Alzheimer's unit, which is probably good because nobody would remember how bad I messed it up, But we said they knew every song.
Yes.
They knew every word to the hymns. They knew how to keep in time, and they knew how to worship.
Yes.
And that, God began to grow my heart some during that time. And, while I was working in nursing, that's where I met my wife. That's where, God started to take me outside of myself some again, and kind of give me purpose again. And then as I got a little bit older, we had the girls, Josie first, and then Lola. And, I kind of went through this struggle in my 20s of trying to stay plugged into my faith, but feeling like a failure, and then going back to drinking, And,
it's easy to feel that way.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the problem that we have a lot of time, we want to please God so badly that we try to do it perfect, and we try to never make a mistake.
Try to be perfect. Yes, that's the way to say it.
And if you read the gospel, man, God's not putting that trip on us, man.
There are so many mistakes in every bit of the Bible. That's the whole thing. It's all mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't care if you're Abraham. He got it wrong, lied about it.
Abraham got it way wrong a lot of times.
I mean, David murdering his best friend to cover up his affair with. And I'm not saying that God liked any of those things, but what I did learn about God with that is, hey, when God makes a covenant with a man, he keeps it. When God makes a promise, he keeps it. He's saying, look, no matter how messed up you are, this is what I said is going to happen. So I'm going to bring that to come to pass, and I know that God made covenants with me, and so sometimes I just got to get past myself to allow God to be who he is in my life, and I'm the biggest stumbling block for that. But at 30 years old, that's when I think I had my biggest breakthrough. Because I had my greatest, I think, one of the greatest struggles of my life, with falling back into addiction and alcoholism. And now my kids are older, and they're to the point where they're starting to see what's going on, And I remember one of my breaking points in that was one day my daughter Josie coming up, just a sweet little girl, and Dad trying to show me something, and I'm drinking beer in the backyard and hanging out with friends, and she's trying to show me something. I'm like, hey, I'm busy, and I kind of push her away a little. And then just a little bit after that, the country song "Walk a Little Straighter, Daddy" came on, and it just broke my heart, because I realized that's what my daughter was feeling in her heart was, hey,
Right.
I need a dad, you
Right.
know, not this. And so God began to convict my heart at that time. And shortly after that, I was in my driveway, and there was some things going on, and I was about to make some. Uh, I forget how my sponsor used to say it. He said, "Don't let a temporary situation allow you to make a permanent mistake."
Right.
And I was kind of at that place,
Uh,
and I just cried out to God, and I'm like, God, I can't stop. I can't get out of this. I need your help, and He did. And just after that, I met Thumper, and
right.
we started playing music together. And then he twisted my arm into going to Crane Christian Church, and
Right.
I'll tell you, my life was never the same after that. I
Exactly.
I said yes to Jesus, and Pastor Bruce Beelan just
Right.
taught me how to humble myself some, and to listen, and allow the Lord to speak to my heart and
I
convict me.
love that guy. He's so fantastic.
I mean,
Just
I've never met a pastor that, and I'm not saying they're not out there. I'm just saying I never met a pastor who understood the grace of God and
right.
was able to convey it, to speak it, and in such a way that you could receive it and believe it was for you, as
Yes.
Pastor says.
Every message for you. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And so, and as I grew in my faith, I realized one of the great giftings that he has, not that he needs to hear that and get his head blown up so big it won't fit in this screen anymore, but is that he always preaches a salvation message, but it's like a buffet. No matter where you're at in your faith, whether you
Right.
need milk or whether you need some prime rib in the Lord, it's there, with
Exactly.
every message. And
Exactly.
and so I think I'd like to think that I learned some of the ministry that I do from him, and that it's helped me to grow. I'll tell you, the problem is, no matter how much you're taught it, I think humility has to be earned through experience and failures.
Yes. You got
And
to learn by falling down. That's
yeah,
clearly right.
yeah, or at least that's how I had to learn, and I'm
Right.
still learning. And but I joked Tuesday night when I was talking about writing a book. 150 ways to not do something by Barry Smith.
Right.
you know, because one of my greatest strengths is my large number of failures. So I can tell you a
Well,
lot of ways to not do
join
it.
the club. Join the club. I'm there too. Definitely.
So, but yeah. So you know what? I spent over 5 years at Crane Christian Church, getting poured into, and getting to minister with great friends and family over there. We went and we had Celebrate Recovery for quite some time there, and even
Right.
after I left, Lee and Leisha continued that
Yeah.
ministry on, and several others. Thumper was one of them, and
Right.
my friend Joffrey. And, Mary said, hey, this town doesn't need less meetings and less ministers. It needs
Right. Exactly.
and more
What a
ministry. She
great
started
gift she
making the
is to
change.
the community. No doubt.
Yep. And I'll tell you, one of the greatest things, if I never got anything else right, was that God spoke to me and my wife to be in relationship with Mary whenever Mary got
Right.
sober. And man, if I could, I can't claim any of that for me, but if there was one success story from somebody that got touched by ministry at Crane Christian Church, Mary has touched thousands of lives and
Right.
thousands of, and that's not an exaggeration. Since the day that she got home and started serving the Lord from rehab, she
has been constant.
nonstop, taking people to rehabs, taking people to meetings, taking
Right.
people to church, praying for people, helping people get delivered out of addiction.
Right.
She's been doing this meeting now since I think 2015.
Right.
So she said, like I said one night at the meeting, if I was able to give one word to give a testimony for Mary Hodges, that word would be faithful.
Right.
Faithful. Because that's what she is. And listen, faithful, sometimes you think, okay, well, that means they really stuck to something. No, what I'm saying is she is full of faith in what God has done for her. She is convinced, no matter what else anybody tries to say, that everybody else can have what she's received from Jesus Christ.
Yes.
She's full of that
that's
faith.
a big part of the story. Yes.
Yep. And she proves it with what she continues to do day after day. She inspires me. I'd like to say, I mentored Mary Hodges, but the stuff that she does, I can't say that I've not been faithful like she's been faithful. I'm not beating myself up. I'm just saying the reality is that she is true to her calling. She
sets a high standard, definitely. And now let's talk about one of our other friends, Tiffany Brown, and the wonderful book that she's written. Talk about her and all the stuff that we're doing for her.
Well, and you say where I wish I could be more involved, but I haven't been as involved as
You're involved. You're part of the team, definitely.
But
here is huge.
Tiffany, I want to paint a little bit of backdrop. I've known Tiffany since grade school.
Right.
I think we went to school together, but I think we ran into each other in the same circle years ago at a church in Aurora. And we grew up together. A matter of fact, whenever I was I think it was going into junior high school, she was just really one of those people that shined a light for Jesus. And I was one of those people who was really a bully to kids like that. You know what I mean? And, but you know what? That didn't stop her from continuing to speak the truth that was in her heart.
Just constant person, constant.
Yeah. And Tiffany is another person who is, we could all look at someone's life and say, well, this could be this way or that could be that way. But one thing I can say about Tiffany is she has never stopped believing in the power of the cross, and she continues to minister to people and continues to, I think that the book that she wrote will be the key to a lot of women's freedom and a lot of men's freedom, a lot of people's freedom.
It's such a powerful and well-written book. That's a big part of this. I'm just impressed by that.
What I've always told people in the ministry is your testimony is the key to someone else's freedom, because there's so many, and I'm not talking about the Me Too movement, but there's so many people that when they hear your testimony, they can identify, they can say, me too. I've hurt that way. I've felt this. I've struggled with that. I've, and stories of overcoming are inspiring. And, and the most beautiful thing is when that story points to the cross, because we know that, that's why God chooses who he chooses. It says he's chosen the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. Right now there's no telling who and where that book is reaching on this globe from a little old country girl in Crane, Missouri. You know what I mean? And there's people reading this, and there's more people that need to read this. Listen, if you're local, if you know Tiffany, if you get a chance to read that book, I'm telling you that you are going to know somebody that this writing is going to have an impact on.
Between, depression and marriage troubles and everything. It's just such a great book.
If you haven't been through one, you've probably been through the other.
Yes.
I mean, listen, if you haven't had troubles in your life, you haven't been on this earth very long. So
that's right. And that, and then we're doing a podcast about my dad. We had 2 more episodes of that, which is going to be fun to get out there. So I really feel like what we're doing on Heroes of Miracles is really it's a cool addition to the ministry, addition to this world.
Yep, absolutely. And just so you all know, that's not a halo. That's a, light bulb in my garage.
No
People
one
that
would have
start posting
accused you
crazy
of
memes
halo.
later of,
Okay, we would not have
Barry's
accused.
reached a new level here of sainthood. No, anybody that knows me knows that's not true, and they figured there was a light bulb up there.
But
But
anyway,
anyway,
what I want to do with this is the same thing I've done kind of throughout the day. Is I want to have the heroes and miracles half hour at 8 o'clock, and then just get people on here at 8 o'clock and
yep.
have them give their testimony, because I really like all the things that it started to do, and I really like things we're going to be able to do.
Well, and we got about 4 minutes and some change left, and I'll just kind of wrap up and dovetail a couple of things.
Absolutely.
So going back to the testimony, kind of where it's at. I talked earlier about how we were in Crane, and then we went to Reed Spring, and
Right.
then we came to Branson. And listen, I still have no doubt that there's unfinished business in Reed Spring that the Lord
Right.
wants to complete, that there's unfinished business right here in Branson that God wants to. I mean, we know it's everywhere.
Right.
But for the story of this turd floating in living water, there's still some things that I think need to be completed. Both for the areas, for my story, and a lot of other stories that
Right.
Have yet to be seen. A lot of other names that are yet to be written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and I think after we came up here and we launched the church, we ran into some hardships, and I can say a lot of things. There was some issues with the church planning network, but the reality in retrospect, looking back, even with issues, I mean, those were things that could have been overcome. And it's been hard for me to look at my own heart and just really be like, where was I at as a leader? Where was I at in comparison to what I was trying to do as far as being ready, and being sure of my calling in the season. And what I really found out was that I'm excited to be who God says I am, much that I'm real good at getting ahead of him. And I also found out that, listen, a pastor is not a guy who gets up and preaches on Sunday morning.
Right.
A pastor is the guy who's at the hospital when you're sick. He's the guy who, when you're broke down and you're hurting and you're lonely, he shows up. The one who checks on you through the week, the one who noticed you weren't at church. And they're not calling to make sure that you attend next Sunday. They're calling to make sure that you're alive, that you're living, that you're walking out your faith, and that somebody's there to hold your hand and help you walk with Jesus. And and it's not that I don't have a heart to do that. It's that I was not in a place in my faith to have the capacity to carry that sort of burden, and so somewhere God's taken me at some point. I believe so, but Mother Teresa said this, and I believe it's very powerful and very true. If you want to save the world, go home and love your family. The Bible says it clearly. It says, hey, take care of your household first. And if you can't take care of your household, then it's hard to run a ministry and take care of other people. And so it's like, all these things, learning to balance life and ministry. And I'll tell you what, man, I've got a whole nother story sometime about the hotel business.
I know.
That's what God brought me into, and it was, I was a high school dropout and a drug addict and an alcoholic and no career path and anything else. And little by little, as I walked out my faith, God has made a way. And I'm no story of rags to riches by any means, but God has given me an honest living and career path that that I'm happy to do. It's given me a purpose, and I feel like there's areas that I excel at it, a lot of areas I need to grow at it, but I'm blessed to be able to manage one of the maybe top 10 properties in Branson, Missouri. And who would ever thought that the drunk 16-year-old barefoot crazy kid from Crane, Missouri, walking down the street with a half-gallon of whiskey, a joint, and a guitar, would have had the opportunity to be able to manage a place with employees and have relationships with them that are good, and with customers that are good, and a place where, yeah, I mean, only God can do something like that.
Exactly. But
So,
I just remember you loved music so much. And that was true for the first time I met you. You were as
yep,
big a music fan as I was. And that was
yeah,
so
yep, and I still am. I of course, as I got saved, I got a lot more into gospel and Christian
right.
rock,
Sure.
Christian hip hop, and things like that. And Seeds of Agape, the Christian band that I'm in, we're working on
Right.
an album right now. Thumper was a monumental loss,
Right.
as a friend, as a mentor, as a colleague, and a fellow musician, and a minister of the gospel. But I'll tell you, I've also been really blessed with Chuck, because Chuck is our new bass player. And let me tell you, that dude's mentoring me right now, and he's speaking
That's
into
awesome.
my life. And and he's been great friends with John, my other guitar player, who has an incredible stories to tell. And I mean, builds guitar amps from
Wow.
an empty circuit board all the way to tubes and everything. And
Wow.
has a brand called Sly Pig amps. He's built a few, and they are
Wow. That's
incredible
awesome.
amplifiers. Yeah. So I know we only got a minute left. I'm going to let you wrap this thing up, Dale.
Well, I love doing this. This is the first one I've done. I enjoy it. I want to have people on here. I want to make this a thing that we do every Monday through Friday night at 8. And I want to get this thing started and make it bigger. And if you get a chance, donate to heroesandmiracles.org, because that book by Tiffany is the first piece. What's that?
Dale, I've got a group that I just joined on Facebook, and maybe we could do something similar. But this group is called the 99%. And if you
Okay.
want to look it up on Facebook, you can. What this group does is, I forget how many, I think there's like 1,800 members right now.
Okay.
But every Friday, they pick a person and they draw their name, and everybody sends $1 every week.
Wow.
And it's a huge blessing to the people that are able to. And listen, I don't care if my name is never picked. It's $1 a week,
Sure.
And think about, every week somebody is getting blessed from anywhere from $500 to $1,800.
Right.
And who couldn't use that in a time like this?
Exactly.
And I mean, we could do a thing for Heroes and Miracles Ministry, because I know there's so much more folks that is planned for this ministry. So many stories to get out. And these platforms are only expanded by finances. Right now, just like Parler, look at what happened, because they didn't have the finances to have their own servers. Right. They got shut down,
Right.
And so this is a chance for us to invest in something that we know is good, that we know will help people.
Right.
So let's talk about that, Dale, on a following up podcast.
That sounds great. Amazing. I would love to get
started like that.
I think that sounds great.
I think we could do the same thing. Only what we could do is, hey, everybody, as you start to join the group every week, I say maybe we do $2 every week, and $1 goes to Heroes and Miracles. The other $1 goes to whoever's name gets drawn.
That's
and we
wonderful.
can draw it right here on the show every week on the podcast.
I love that, because you always have these amazing marketing ideas that I just think are so full of God and so full of, I just love the things you think of every single time.
This is a great opportunity for us to bless each other as the body and bless this ministry. So, this is like a 50-50 cash drawing every week to raise money for Heroes and Miracles.
That's pretty
cool. Let's get that Facebook group, and I will donate the first $1 to Heroes and Miracles, and to whoever gets drawn for next Friday. How about that?
Let's do that for next Friday. That's an amazing idea.
If you're on this podcast, be looking out for the Heroes and Miracles Facebook group, where we will do the drawing. And I'll be sending out invites to people on my friends list. And I'll encourage all of you as you get into the group and you do that. And the way that it'll work is it'll be similar to what these other folks are doing. As you get on there, make sure that you get entered into the spreadsheet. We keep a spreadsheet. And then every week somebody gets picked off of that spreadsheet. And then so everybody knows the way that you're eligible to win that drawing is that the week before you show that you gave $1 to Heroes and Miracles, and you post it on the group, and you show that you gave $1 to whoever the winner was. Now you are highlighted, and you have the opportunity to win and be the one that's picked the next week. That's how you enter to win the next week, is by giving the week before. $2 a week. Who can't, and maybe there are some that can't out there that can't do it. If that is you, hey, message us and let's see if we can't help you anyway. So.
All right, man. What a great first Heroes and Miracles half hour.
All right. Well, Jesus is the only hero in here, but we're both miracles. So
that's entirely true.
All right. Well, this has been